Hello, Namaste, Guten Tag. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed members of the Friends of Indian Diaspora, FOID. A very warm welcome to you all. I am Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗴𝗏, the proud founder of this distinguished platform. And it is my privilege to host you today as we come together to celebrate India's Constitution Day and Lawyers Day. We are graced by the presence of some truly remarkable individuals on our virtual stage. Professor Dr. Markus Kotzur, Antigona Lesi, Joanna Sarkar, Gitanjali, and our esteemed co-organizer, Richard Mantosh. Your presence elevates the significance of this event, and we are deeply honored to have you join us. As we begin, let us take a moment to reflect on the profound significance of India's Constitution Day, a day that represents the trump of democratic ideas and the visionary foresight of our nation's founding leaders. The Constitution embodies justice, equality, and fraternity, the very principles that steer India's journey towards forward. Today, we also honor Bharat Ratna, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the first president of India who served as the president of the Constitution Assembly that drafted the Constitution between 1948 and 1950. His immense contribution is remembered with gratitude, and his birth anniversary on December 3rd is celebrated as India's Advocates' Day. And we have chosen this day, which is in between our Constitution Day and India's Lawyers' Day. A day to acknowledge and honor the vital role of advocates in our society. For those joining a FOID event for the first time, let me share a brief insight into our initiative. FOID is a vibrant platform that unites individuals with diverse talent and aspirations, creating opportunities to contribute to society across cultural, professional, educational, social domains. Our mission is to build meaningful bridges between the Indian diaspora and the broader global community, fostering collaborative engagement. Over the years, FOID has organized a wide range of events, including Indian Languages Day, Indian State Foundation Day, Engineers Day, Doctors Day, Advocates Day, chess tournaments, Friendship Day, and many more. We warmly invite you all to join us in these initiatives and be part of a meaningful journey of connection and contribution. On this special occasion, we also celebrate the noble profession of advocacy. An advocate is not just a legal professional, but a champion for justice, a voice for the voiceless, and a catalyst for change. Through this event, we express our heartfelt gratitude to all advocates for their invaluable contribution to society and aim to inspire the next generation to take up this noble cause. In today's program, we will engage in enlightening talks and thought-provoking discussions on the significance of the Constitution and the role of advocates in shaping society, and much more. So let us embark to this inspiring journey together. Before I invite our speakers, I would like to mention that recording is going on, and we can also look on our previous events recording on our channel on YouTube. And I would like all of you to participate in this event by sharing your appreciation, comments, and question in the chat box throughout the program. To ensure the smooth execution of the event, all attendees will remain muted. However, if anyone prefers to speak instead of writing, please raise your hand and we will unmute you at the appropriate time. I would also like to express my gratitude to those who have already submitted their queries in advance, and we will do our best to address as many of them as possible during the discussion if it has been not covered by our speaker during their pre-discussion. So thank you very much for your cooperation. And now it is time to invite our guest of honor and bring him into the spotlight. It is my great honor to introduce our first distinguished guest, Professor Dr. Markus Kotzur, a highly accomplished academic and legal expert. Professor Kotzur began his academic journey in law at the universities of Freiburg and Beirut. In 1993, he passed the first state examination, followed by earning the prestigious title Legum Magister at Duke University in North Carolina. After accomplishing his legal traineeship, he earned his doctorate from the University of Beirut in 2002 with a specialization in cross-border cooperation in Europe, a topic that reflects his deep commitment to advancing international legal studies. The same year, he completed his habilitation, solidifying his expertise in European and international law. In 2005, Professor Kotzur was appointed Professor of European and International Law and Public Law at the University of Leipzig, Germany. His dedication to fostering academic excellence led him to the Europa-Kolleg Hamburg, where he has been the director of the master's program, European and European Legal Studies, since 2011 and serves as its president since 2018. Currently, he holds the professorship for public law, European and international law at the University of Hamburg, where he has also serves as Deputy Director of the Institute for International Affairs. Professor Kotzur has played a pivotal role in academic leadership, including his tenure as Vice Dean for Studies and Teaching from 2015 to 2020, and as Vice Dean for International Relations since 2020. Professor Kotzur's contribution to the legal fraternity are profound, and we are truly privileged to have him with us today. So Professor Kotzur, this virtual stage is all yours.
Yeah, dear Mr. Sarkar, dear Mr. Mentor, thank you so much for the kind invitation. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here as a guest speaker at the occasion of your Constitution Day. And I'm very excited about that option because it shows the strong interests in the mutual relations between India on the one hand and Germany, respectively, the European Union on the other hand. So thank you for very much for having me here. I think the Constitution Day is the perfect event to remind ourselves of the similarities between the constitutional systems of India and of Germany, respectively, the European Union. And in doing so, I think we also highlight how important and interesting it might be to have student exchange, PhD exchange of all levels. And these are the 2 points I'd like to make in my little speech. I would like to address the power and the grand perspectives of comparative approaches to the Indian Constitution and to the European Constitution and the German Constitution on the one hand, and on the other hand, the options and opportunities for Indian colleagues studying in Germany and vice versa, German students coming to India to further develop their legal knowledge. India is not only the biggest democracy globally, but it also is a federal state. And this is something which as a blueprint is very important for the European integration process and also for the German constitutional process. As you all know, Germany is also a federal state. It always has been throughout the 19th century. It kind of, created that federal constitutional architecture, and it upheld that federal constitutional architecture after the Second World War, when in 1949 establishing the Basic Law. Therefore, comparative approaches for constitutional lawyers in Germany are very important if we look at other constitutional states and other constitutional frameworks around the globe. And very often, of course, if I talk to students and we are talking about federal systems, they will start with the United States of America as the country which invented federalism. However, pretty soon we come to realize that the United States of America are definitely not the only federal system, the federal scheme from which we can learn quite a lot. And, the closer you look at multicultural societies, multi-religious societies, the more it becomes obvious that India and the Indian constitutional framework is a wonderful blueprint if we look how to build the European constitutional architecture, in particular within the European Union, which is not, at least not yet, a federal state, but it goes way beyond the classical traditional confederacy, forming a supranational union of its own with pre-federal infrastructures, with multicultural foundations, with the need to reconcile different cultures, different historical perspectives, different political traditions, and different religions. And in that regard, I think the Indian political integration process, framing the Indian constitution, is an excellent framework we as Europeans and Germans should look at. Therefore, I'm quite happy that I can also collaborate quite closely with a colleague at Humboldt University in Berlin, Philipp Dann, who is doing extensively comparative work between the German constitution and the Indian constitution, and also the framework of European Union law. Let me come to my second point, which might be in particular interesting for you. I think it is very important that, many young people, many young lawyers from India come to Germany or another European country to study European Union law, because this is extremely important for the way we cooperate with each other, we are doing business with each other, we understand each other. And therefore, we are quite happy to offer in Germany different also study programs, legal programs, to invite students from all around the globe and to invite in particular students from India. I think that kind of exchange is extremely important. It's extremely important, for advocacy, which plays a very important role if you want to be a lawyer on the international plane. Of course, for international business, that kind of, global perspectives are extremely important. It's also important for young lawyers who might work later on in the field of academia and of sciences to do these comparative approaches. And obviously, one very important field that we need to learn from each other is business law and the infrastructure of the European Union's single market with its market freedoms. This is where business is done in Europe. And if Europe so far globally plays an important role, then as an economic community, the European Union, you might have read in the newspapers these days, is struggling with finding strategic sovereignty, strategic autonomy. The French president made quite a lot of claims. We are readjusting our defense policies and so on. But the so far biggest strength of the European Union on the global plane as a global player is its economic potential. And therefore, the cooperation when it comes to business law, when it comes to corporate law, when it comes to free markets and free trade, I think the cooperation between India and the European Union is extremely important. And I think it becomes increasingly important since we see tendencies for protectionist approaches around the globe, most prominently these days, President-elect Donald Trump in the United States of America, who every day kind of, is very intuitive. Tariffs, which, from a European perspective, we find quite astonishing, because tariffs, this is a story we learned, not a win-win, it's rather a lose-lose situation for all the business and cooperation partners. So I think in that regard, when it comes to free trade, there is a need for very close cooperation and learning from each other between India, Europe, and Germany. And the same holds true when we talk about democracy and democratic resilience. In Europe, and also I think in other parts of the world, we are in these days intensively debating about how to make our democracies more resilient, how to strengthen democratic infrastructures, how to improve democratic participation processes in mass democracies with quite a lot of people participating in the political process. And in that regard, India is also a country which is a very important field from comparative approaches. And it is a field where I think scientific research is of the utmost importance. So let me highlight, among many, many other fields of the law, we might later on continue in our debates, but let me highlight these two fields as in particular important for cooperation. As I said in my second point, I will briefly talk about study options in Germany. And of course, I can share my experience. As you said in the introduction, I'm responsible for one program at the University of Hamburg and at Europa-Kolleg Hamburg. We have many more of these programs in Germany, and I think they are a wonderful opportunity for students, for young colleagues in India to come to Germany, to do a master in Germany, and maybe to get ready then to continue with a PhD program in Germany, for instance, at Hamburg University. We are running a program which is called European and European Legal Studies, and I'm very glad that Richard Mantosh participated in that program. So I was lucky enough to be invited to today's wonderful event. The program is a combination of legal perspectives, political perspectives, and economic perspectives on the process of European integration, trying to cover, more or less every field of European integration. And within the history of the program, we learned something which I find, as its director, extremely important. In the early days of the program, more or less, only Europeans would participate. It would be young European lawyers being interested in maybe working for the European Union, being interested in better understanding European Union law. That were the days when European Union law was not yet that present, also not that present on within the schedules, of legal education in Germany. Later on, we had quite a lot of students from Eastern European countries who were ready to join the European Union and to become a member state. And the young people in these countries wanted to learn more about European integration. And therefore, these training programs are extremely important. But I think since about, the last 10 years, we have an increasing number of students from third countries, from non-member states, coming from really all around the globe, for the obvious reason that also they are quite interested in the entity called European Union as a potential business partner, as a cooperation partner, as a place to seek job opportunities and so on. And therefore, we are very happy to offer that opportunity for students from around the globe, and in particular, students also from India, to get to know the European legal system, to also get to know, if they want a bit, the German legal system, to have classes taught in English, and also to learn German a bit on the side and get ready really to gain important insights for their later on professional careers in European integration law, European integration politics, and the economic framework. And such a master program can be a starting point for either kind of, better trained, going back home and pursuing your career in your home country, for instance, India, or it could be a way to pursue a career within Germany, within the European Union, saying I'd like to work, for instance, for an international law firm in Germany or in United Kingdom, which is now a bit more difficult after Brexit, but there is still very good and close connections, or in France or in another member state of the European Union. And it's also a very good opportunity if you decide to do a PhD, to do your doctoral dissertation in Germany. At the University of Hamburg, we have manifold options, and we are also very happy to welcome doctoral candidates doing their thesis in English. That should be, I think, a very nice, very good opportunity for students also from India. Let me tell you that in the past, we have been in particular proud that as the Federal Chancellor Scholarship for Indian students still existed, that we had every year 2 candidates from India joining our class at Europa-Kolleg Hamburg. And so we have a very, very long tradition of hosting and welcoming Indian students in our program. So there is even a little Indian community at the Europa-Kolleg Hamburg. And we are very, very happy to also in the future strengthen these ties in regard of learning, in regard of sharing experiences, in regard of working and cooperating together. And from a teacher's point of view, this is also a wonderful starting point for teachers' exchange, for doing research together, for working as visiting professors in India as a German or in Germany as an Indian colleague, as an Indian scholar. And that kind of exchange is very important to be strengthened, in particular in these days where free trade and resilience and democracy are at stake. So I'm very glad, I'm really very glad to be able to join this event. And without any further ado, I will leave it here, and I'll be, of course, open for all kinds of questions later on in the course of the program. Again, thank you very, very much for having me. And thank you very much also for that initiatives, because I think it needs initiatives like these to bring together people from around the globe who are working as lawyers, but not only in the interest of make money and make yourself a living, but inspired by the ideas of justice, by the ideas of the rule of law, of democracy, of human rights. And so this is a perfect podium for working together, thinking together, and opening avenues for new opportunities. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing such a valuable insight with us, Professor Kotzur. It was a very engaging, very clear messages, also for the opportunity part, like what the young Indian can find opportunity within your institute or in general, seeing the European Union. So I'm really confident that such information would be very helpful for many, not only those who have joined today, but those who will also watch it later. And as you said, for sure, we will have a discussion toward the end, and there we will have more opportunity to discuss those questions. So a very thoughtful and very valuable information. So a very, very thank you from my side. So now let's move to our next speaker. We have with us Antigona Lesi, a fully qualified German lawyer specializing in migration law and renewable energy law, with a vast array of experiences, including advising companies and entrepreneurs on migrating to Germany. Ms. Lesi is currently the head of legal at Bundesverband Windenergie, the German Wind Energy Association. Her educational journey is a testament to her commitment to legal excellence. Ms. Lesi studies in Passau, Germany, Cardiff, Wales, and Monash University in Melbourne, Australia, at the Sunway campus, Malaysia. During her qualification as a full lawyer in the German system, she underwent the rigorous referendariat, honing her legal skills. Ms. Lesi's professional journey is as impressive as her academic accomplishment. She has served as a judge and prosecutor and dwelled into the intricacies of migration law. Notably, she contributed her legal expertise to Indo-German Chamber of Commerce in Calcutta, advising companies and entrepreneurs on migration to Germany, establishing business units, and facilitating transactions with German companies. With a remarkable 3-year stint as a lawyer at the Chamber of Commerce in Berlin, Ms. Lesi has accumulated a wealth of experience in navigating the legal landscape. So let's warmly welcome Antigona Lesi. Antigona, stage is yours now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, distinguished participants, Mr. Sarkar, Mr. Mantosh. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you for letting me speak and participate and contribute to this beautiful event that you have been hosting today. I am honored to speak about some parts of Germany that we have already heard about. So I am a lawyer who I have worked a lot with businesses all around the world. As you already heard before, I have advised companies on opening subsidiaries in Germany. And yeah, I would like to speak a bit about my experience so far and some parts that might also help you to understand the German system a bit better, or if anyone is thinking about picking up Professor Kotzur's beautiful programs and actually coming to Germany, it is always very helpful to know how to navigate yourself and how to actually live in Germany and what the differences might be. So during my time in Calcutta, that was in 2019, 2020, I worked for the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, advising Indian companies on how to open subsidiaries in Germany, or also German companies on how to get some people from India to work in their companies, or to get freelancers, all kinds of business opportunities between those countries. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to ask. I will also get into some more points later, but the most important thing, if you want to get into any country, not just Germany, but also obviously Germany, if you come from India, you will need a visa. So which visa types are there in Germany? There is quite a lot. So it always depends on what you actually want to do here. Would you like to go to Hamburg University and visit? Then you will need a visa for studying, which does have different requirements than work visas for qualified professionals, of course, or there is also a special visa in Germany for IT professionals. This might not necessarily be a part today. Maybe we do also have some participants who are from the IT professional field. Then there's also always a self-employment visa, where you will have to get into your business idea and have to create a business plan and tell the German state why your self-employment and business idea is helpful for the German economy. And we do also have another program, or another visa type, which we have a lot of people also from India coming to Germany with. It's called the Blue Card. This is for everyone earning above a certain threshold of money, and it's usually white-collar professionals who come and work in Germany, as for example lawyers or engineers or other types of work. Then you made it, you got your visa, you finally entered Germany, and you live. You find an apartment, and you actually got your place. What do you need to do first at hand in Germany is you have to register with your local community. You will say that you have now moved to wherever, and then it is mandatory in Germany within 2 weeks of moving to a new place that you actually obtain your documents and services and say where you live, and just enter your address into the local community services. This is this is pretty important. Otherwise, you can actually also get fined if you don't do this within 2 weeks of arriving to a new place or a new apartment. What is also mandatory in Germany is health insurance. You will have to ensure that you have either public or private health insurance coverage. This usually goes through your employer if you're here on a work visa or on a blue card, or you will have to handle it in a different way if you come as a student, for example. But it is important to familiarize yourself with the healthcare system and know how to handle medical services, because this differs a bit from India, for example. What's also important if you plan on driving within Germany, you will need to translate your driver's license. Sometimes this includes, in some federal states in Germany, this also includes you taking up some lessons and actually going through a driver's license test again to say you're familiar with the transportation and public transportation rules, sorry, this is not for driving, obviously. You do need to know the rules of the street and yeah, what applies in Germany. So sometimes you will have to take another test. And what is also obviously important when you move to Germany, you make yourself familiar with housing laws, because also your rights and responsibilities as a tenant differ quite a bit and are very strong in Germany. Especially you as a renter will have a lot of rights, which sometimes you might not actually know if you're not familiar with the rent regulations. So it is always worth taking a closer look here to actually know what your rights are. Employment and workplace regulations, obviously also a very big part. Employment laws are very, very strict in Germany, and the employee rights are also quite far, stretch out very far. So it's always good to fully understand your employment contract. Don't hesitate to actually get it translated and maybe even read by a labor lawyer, just to make sure that your employment rights are actually met. So these are some of the parts which you will have to keep in mind when you come to Germany and want to study or work here. If you plan on starting a business in Germany, there is also a 5-step rule. You have to obviously register your business. You have to make sure that you pay taxes. You have to insure yourself and your company, because also health insurance here, you will still have to be insured. But if you're self-employed, if you start a business, this goes a bit through a different system. So also here, very important to keep that in mind. And you have to inform yourself of the contracts and laws that affect you, obviously, and fulfill your duties as an employer. Also there is, a bunch of rules that you will have to apply to. If you want to have any more information on that, I can also post some more websites in the chat, because there's a lot of helpful websites and institutions in Germany, like, for example, the local Chamber of Commerce. I worked at the local Chamber of Commerce in Berlin. We did have a lot of startups, businesses coming from abroad, also a lot of Indian participants who we advised on how to get started with their business ideas within Berlin. There's also another platform which is called Make It in Germany. Also there you will have plenty of information on visa types, on how to open a business, how to get here, on whichever terms and conditions you would like, or whichever plans you have. Then there's also another thing called I Am Expat. Also that a bit broader, the information on that website. And obviously the Federal Foreign Office of Germany also gives a lot of helpful tips. Maybe also getting into what Mr. Kotzur said earlier, Germany is a federal state. So always keep in mind, wherever you are. I did say something about Berlin at the moment. Berlin is a city, but it's also one of our states. So different rules apply wherever you go, but you're very familiar with that because you have the same system in India. I guess I will end my talk at this point. Just as an overview, I am very happy for you to ask questions, to let me know what further information you would like. And I say thank you for the stage and give back to you, 𝗀𝘀.
Thank you so much. So I must express my gratitude for providing such an insightful and very practical information. This is not easy. Once you know, things looks very easy, but what you gave it such a close package, it is really helpful if someone is looking for it. So I really appreciate this. And I'm confident that the knowledge shared will provide to be exceptionally beneficial for a wide audience. And once again, not only today, those we have like 50 participants, but also tomorrow, those who will watch for it. So thank you very, very much. Once again, highly appreciated and very valuable. So now it is time to move forward. And in my opinion, how can one imagine an Indian event without some sort of a music? So before we open the floor for our next speakers, let's have some music by Gitanjali. Our next guest is a very talented and inspiring individual. Gitanjali is currently pursuing her master's degree and is gaining valuable experience through her ongoing internship. Beyond her academics and professional pursuit, she is a passionate singer who has been sharing her talent and skills with the younger generation even. Through the FOID platform, Gitanjali has been offering online singing workshops for young children, which have been met with tremendous enthusiasm and joy. Her dedication to nurturing creativity in kids is truly commendable, and her workshop has left a lasting impression on the little ones who thoroughly enjoyed them. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's extend a warm and enthusiastic welcome to Gitanjali. Hi, Geeta, stage is yours.
Hello, Gautam. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for the lovely welcome. I'll be doing a little mashup today for you guys. It's completely, it's Indian music, but I hope you guys will love it. ಕುಕ್ಕುರು ಗುರು ಗುರು ಕೋವಿ ಕುರುವಿ ಕುಂಡು ಮನತೆ ಹೋಯಲ್ಲಾಡಿ ಕೊಡು ಬರುಕ್ಕೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ವಿಳಕನ್ನೆ ಮಾರನುನ್ನೆ ಕೂವಿ ಕುರುವಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ವಿಳಕನ್ನೆ ಕುಕ್ಕುರು ಗುರು ಗುರು ಕೋವಿ ಕುರುವಿ ಕುಂಡು ಮನತೆ ಹೋಯಲ್ಲಾಡಿ ಕೊಡು ಬರುಕ್ಕೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ವಿಳಕನ್ನೆ ಮಾರನುನ್ನೆ ಕೂವಿ ಕುರುವಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ವಿಳಕನ್ನೆ ತಂಗ ಕೂರಸಲ್ಲೇ ಕೂರ್ಕಂ ಕೋಯಿಲಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾರನ ಮೈಲಲ್ಲೇ ತಂಗ ಕುರಸಲ್ಲೇ ಕುರ್ಬಂ ಕೋಯಿಲಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾರನ ಮೊಯಿಲಲ್ಲೇ देखते हैं तन मेरा मन में छुपती है नजर होठ से जाते उनके नर्म होठों से मगर गिनती रहती हूँ मैं अपनी करवटों के सिलसिले क्या करूं कैसे कहूं रात कब कैसे ढले जिया जले जा जले नैनो तले दुआ चले रात भर दुआ चले जानो ना सके रे सजन बिन आए ना मोहे निंदिया रैन बर आए रे जागर दिया काहे तो मोहे सजन प्यार दिखे नजारे माने ना अपने अखिया सजन बिन आए ना मोहे निंदिया निरसाजा 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 re ne a
Thank you so much, Geeta.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you very much. As Gautam already mentioned, I am a student here in Germany. I'm doing my master's here in scientific instrumentation, and I also am a very passionate singer. I've been learning Carnatic classical music all my life, and I also sing film music. And this is such a great platform that FOID offers us as well, to teach young kids here. And it's been great working with Gautam, especially he's been so lovely, offering us the platform that we needed. So thank you again, Gautam, and this is such a wonderful event for all the people, and it's been so lovely singing for you all. I'll be dropping in also my personal profiles here, and if you do have some time to check them out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geeta, for making this a nice, let's say, a pause and fun together with music. And you had been always great for us. So thank you very much. And yes, if someone is interested, please visit her profiles that she will share, and you will know more about her and her skills. So now get back to the topic of our law and constitution. And moving forward, our next guest is Joanna Sarkar. She is an advocate at the court at Calcutta and has been participating as a human rights lawyer specializing in anti-human trafficking issues in West Bengal with a focus on victim compensation and fair and proper investigation of trafficking cases, accountability and preparatory liability in such cases. In her professional capacity, Joanna serves as a legal consultant for various human rights organizations in the state. Joanna is also the co-author of 𝗬𝗍𝗻, a statistical analysis of 50 convictions in sex trafficking cases in West Bengal, and has authored a chapter in the book Revisiting Reform in the Criminal Justice System in India, published by Thomson Reuters. Joanna also writes on mental health and social political issues on platforms such as Medium and Youth Ki Awaaz. So Joanna, please, we want to welcome you. The stage is all yours, and please feel free.
Thank you, Gautam. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. And it's such a privilege and honor to be here and see so much of participation and hear about how the system works in Germany. I've had the wonderful privilege of serving as a legal consultant for various organizations, as Gautam shared. I specialize on human trafficking issues here in West Bengal and now currently in India. Part of what I do is a lot of state accountability cases, compensation cases. In my history of working for the last 10 years as a legal consultant and as well as a lawyer, I have represented multiple survivors of human trafficking and child sexual abuse across different forums and different legal courts in here in India. And it has been an honor, and that's how I know Richard. I've had the wonderful privilege of working with Richard many, many years ago when we first started a career, I think way back in 2013 and 14. And I've known Richard for a very long time, and I'm so happy that he reached out to me for this. As we were on the topic of the Indian Constitution, as well as what is the role of lawyers in upholding the Indian Constitution, right? I do believe as a human rights lawyer, it is very evident that I am a huge believer in the principles that the Indian Constitution has made for us, that is justice, equality, and liberty. Now, coming to the work that we do, that I do in my professional sphere, is that, we find the tenets of the Indian Constitution as a human rights lawyer, we hold them very dearly. Um, because our Indian Constitution, it's a wonderful, well-written constitution. I think it's one of the longest constitutions in the world. It has been inspired by various legal systems. It has inspired various legal systems also. And I always say this, right? We have some of the world's best laws here in India. For instance, in the domain that I work in, we have one of the laws that is particularly pertaining to children, irrespective of gender, that particularly deals with child sexual abuse cases. And so the law is not an issue here in India, I feel. We have a great constitution, we have a great legal framework, we have great legislatures. And this is where I feel that is so important as Indian lawyers, uh, and the role of Indian lawyers in kind of upholding these principles and tenets of the Constitution. For instance, the main tenet of the Constitution is justice, equality, and liberty. Now, while these are facets of the law and these are the tenet of any law, that any legislative information or any legislative piece that has come out from ever since the Constitution was framed, all the laws believe in these three principles. It's reflected whether it's business laws, whether it's a constitutional framework, or whether it's protective laws, right? But as a country, are we there yet? I do think that, and that's a reflective question, right? Because no country, I believe, is perfect. And there is always a strive to do better. For instance, justice, equality, and liberty. As a human rights lawyer who represents various survivors of sexual abuse, right? One of the things that comes up often in practice, and that we often push the judicial system here and the public and various stakeholders of the public justice system, is to uphold these principles of law in courts, in day-to-day practice. And I think that becomes very crucial, because while laws are there, it is the advocates and it is our responsibility as officers of the court to implement these laws. One of the areas that I work in is state accountability in cases. And so, as we know, everyone, according to Article 14 of the Constitution, everybody is equal before the law. Article 23 of the Constitution prohibits exploitation of people. And again, it's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful Constitution. But when we go to the practicalities of it and the nuances of it, there is a challenge. And I would like to believe that this challenge is not just limited to India. I've been across both in UK and the US, and we see that survivor based advocacy in courts, it is a challenge. And let's not shy away from that, because that is the truth. And so I do believe that, this is where the role of lawyers who come in, because we are what society thinks us to be, are the officers of the court. It is our duty to implement these laws. So for instance, in my in my career, I've seen many a times, right, that we find that investigation in cases of human trafficking or sexual abuse, they go underchecked, they are not proper, they are not investigated properly, and hence it has been a great experience on working as an officer of the court to bring up those matters before different forums and speak to the public justice system and say, hey, you know what, this investigation could have been done this way, or this investigation um, ought to be done in this way according to what the law says. And it has been an interesting career, and it is challenging. But again, if we focus on the main constitutional tenets and what the Constitution says, that's really interesting. And I think it becomes it becomes a part of regular process, right? Another thing I would like to touch upon is that while the Indian Constitution talks a lot about, and we all want to talk about fundamental rights, and we are always about talking about rights of different kinds of rights that we're entitled to. But very often that we forget in India or in Indian context is that the Constitution also talks about fundamental duties of citizens towards the state, that is adherence to laws, adherence to simple laws like constitutional laws, taxation laws, environmental laws, right? We have a duty to society as well. And as lawyers, when we find the right balance between the rights and the duties that we are supposed to do, I do believe that we truly are capable of becoming an equalitarian society for everyone involved. Moving forward, before I end, Richard did ask me to share some of the basic knows and hows of what as foreign expats, particularly from Germany, if they came to India, what were some of the kind of challenges or what are kind of the legal things that we should know. Like I've said, India is a great country with beautiful laws. Of course, there are some laws that I think that we ought to know. For instance, any German, you can like Antigona said, right? It depends on the kind of visa that you are coming to India for. But one of the very important things that comes up in any of these visas is that you have to report to the Foreign Regulation Office within 14 days of your arrival in India. And that's something that, that is something that is not taken lightly here in India. You have to report to these offices. You have to kind of let them know where you're staying, and all other sorts of issues that come up. We have different kinds of visas. We have business visas, we have students visas, we have entry and residential permits for people wanting to come from Germany to India. Like I said, foreigner registration. If you're planning to stay more in India for more than 180 days, Germans are required to register with what we call the FRO, the Foreign Regional Registration Office, within 14 days. Again, this is mandatory for those, irrespective of kind of visa you're on, employment, student, or any long-term visa that crosses 180 days. We have different kinds of work regulations. We have the employment visas, where Germans wishing to work in India must have an employment visa that is tied to a specific employer. If you come to India on a specific employer contract, you cannot change employment in the middle of it without notifying the relevant authorities. Again, very interesting, right? Income tax in India. If you're living in India for more than 182 days, you will be considered as a resident of India for tax purposes and are required to pay the Indian tax for global income. Housing accommodation, not very different from Germany. Germans living in India can definitely rent apartments on homes. It is common to ask landlords, and it is also very specific. And as a lawyer, I would always advise this: when you're getting into any kind of agreement to live in India, always ask for lease agreements and identity proof. Typically, lease agreements in India is a practice of not renting more than 12 months. And if you're renting for more than 12 months, and it has to be a particular lease period which cannot cross a particular number of years. Coming to the cultural and social values, we had this beautiful performance by Gitanjali, and what a lovely voice. But coming back to it, India is full of diverse culture, different. We are a large population, and we have different kinds of people from different ethnics, different religions, different cultural values that live in India. And so while you're living in India, it is essential to be very mindful of the social customs that are there. And so, there are a lot of rules according to, there are a lot of social social and cultural norms that are there in India, which we don't find in a lot of European countries. But in India, what might be okay in the Western European countries might not be okay in India. Health insurance is not mandatory for Germans, people from German or European or any other foreigner. It is highly advisable for people wanting to live in India to have comprehensive health insurance. India's healthcare system is very different from what you might be accustomed to in your own home countries. And private insurance does help in covering different kinds of medical costs. Banking and financial regulations. If you are wanting to open a bank account for financial transactions, whether it's business transactions, whether it's personal transactions, it is very common to open a non-resident ordinary account in any bank here in India. But for that, you will need to have a valid visa. You will need to submit your visa details to the bank. There are also restrictions on the amount of foreign currency that can be bought into the country. With regards to foreign funds, there are certain regulations that apply under the Foreign Exchange Management Act, which you call the FEMA. It is advisable that before you come to India, these laws are read, or you consult with a lawyer or financial business lawyer on what is the kind of transactions that are allowed, how much currency I can bring into India. Like Antigona mentioned, driving, right? If you're coming to India, you don't really need to get another fresh license. You can use your international license here in India. It's valid up to 1 year. But we usually and I like to end my note on this, right? We usually drive to the left of the road, but there's this way, given the congestion and given the population of India, it is very popularly said that we don't drive on the left of the road, we don't drive on the right of the road, we drive on what is left of the road. And that is how the country is, and it's a beautiful country. Again, we would love to have you here in this country. And our entire personality, our entire culture is Atithi Devo Bhava, which means our guests are our special people. And we treat them as gods, and you're most welcome in a country which is so rich in culture and heritage. And with that, I would like to end. It's been a lovely privilege to be here this evening.
Thank you, Joanna, for sharing your valuable insight. I think you also explained very nicely several things and correlated and also sold very well about the India. So I say that India is by default diverse. So understanding that diversity means when you cannot figure out what is different, then you are truly diverse. And this is what India is. So very rightly said. And I just would like to say that there are several people very rightly asking the question in the chat box, and I see that Antigona is very active in replying those answers and so on. And if something will not be clarified, I think we will also bring it back. I just want to say a few things in Hindi because I see that there are some local people, they are also interested in listening something in Hindi language, something maybe Richard can say a few things in Bengali language to connect more people. I hope this will be fine for a few minutes. So जो लोग भी भारत से जुड़े हैं उनका बहुत बहुत आभार। और जैसा कि आप सभी देख रहे हैं कार्यक्रम बहुत अच्छा चल रहा है और ये सारा कार्यक्रम रिकॉर्ड भी हो रहा है। अगर आप बाद में देखना चाहेंगे तो आप हमारे YouTube चैनल पे बाद में देख सकते हैं। 2-3 दिनों में ये अपलोड कर दिया जाएगा और अगर आपको वहाँ के बाद कोई सवाल आता है तो आप वापस भी पूछ सकते हैं। और कुछ खास जो चीज़ें हैं उसका लिंक एंटीगोना ने शेयर किया है तो उस लिंक को आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं, देख सकते हैं कि जर्मनी में क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ है, कैसे हम यहाँ आके पढ़ सकते हैं। और प्रोफेसर कोत्सुर जो हैं वो काफ़ी कुछ बताए कि उनके संस्थान में, उनके यूनिवर्सिटी में आप कैसे आके बैचलर कर सकते हैं, मास्टर कर सकते हैं, पीएचडी कर सकते हैं। तो बहुत सारी संभावनाएं हैं जर्मनी में और भारत और जर्मनी के बीच अभी बहुत सारे द्विपक्षीय समझौते हो रहे हैं। उन समझौते के तहत बहुत सारे आसार और अवसर उत्पन्न होंगे। तो मेरी कोशिश है कि अगर आप लोग इसको ध्यान से दिमाग में रखें और उसके हिसाब से अगर अपने आप को यहाँ अपने कैरियर के रूप में देखना चाहते हैं तो बना सकते हैं, और आज ये एक मंच है जिसके तहत आप अलग अलग बातें पूछ सकते हैं, सुन सकते हैं। भाषा कोई बीच में बाधा नहीं होनी चाहिए, पर हमें सब लोगों को सीखना है। यहाँ आने के बाद जर्मन भी सीखना पड़ता है। तो बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप सबों को जुड़ने के लिए। और अब मैं मंतोष को बुलाना चाहूँगा। So our next speaker is Richard Mantosh, who is also the co-organizer of today's program that we started this few years ago. Mantosh is originally from Calcutta, India. Richard is a sales contract specialist and certified compliance officer who is based out of Germany, Hamburg since 2017. He holds an LL.M degree in European law from the University of Hamburg and has over 5-year professional experience in supporting companies across Germany and European Union. Prior to coming to Germany in 2017, he practiced law for over 2 years, primarily at the High Court at Calcutta, as well as up to the Supreme Court of India, New Delhi. When not working, he is researching and writing toward his PhD doctoral thesis. And he is also actively involved as a speaker on trade and legal topics, especially as honorary ambassador with 𝗔𝗱𝗃. 𝗔𝗱𝗃 is a platform which strengthens the economic startup relation between India and German ecosystem. He is also an honorary judge with ICC Moot competition, which welcomes students for the world's largest competition on international criminal law. So let's warmly welcome my friend Richard. Richard, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Gautam. Thank you, everyone, for the lovely talk. I was actually taking down some notes here on everyone's speech, and it's quite interesting to sort of learn and keep learning. As someone once told me, even at the age of 80, you're always still a law student. There's always learning still there. You never graduate truly from law school. With that, I made a small PowerPoint presentation that I would like to share very quickly. Just a second. Okay. Are you able to see my screen, Gautam?
No, not yet. Now, yes.
Right.
So could you please put into the full screen mode? Yeah.
Maybe I minimize this. Yes, can you see it?
Yes, all well.
So my topic is basically divided into 2 sections on the Indian and German constitution, or sort of cross comparison. And I'll be talking about LL.M studies in Germany. I'll start off. Gautam, would you just keep a tab on admitting people?
Yes, I am doing so. Thanks, Richard.
Okay, the core features of the Indian Constitution. This is the preamble of the Constitution. World's largest constitution, started off with 395 articles, and today stands at 448 articles with several schedules. It's a flowing document because it takes into account the pluralism of India, the diversity of India, of almost 1.5 billion people. So the document is always flowing and fluid in its nature. It's been amended 104 times. You will find that that's a lot of times for a major country, for a constitution to be amended so many times. It's not very common for a constitution to be amended, but there is the Kesavananda Bharati case, which is the decision of the Supreme Court of India, which outlines the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. And we will talk about this a little later. And essentially, this is one of the things that cannot be ever touched in the Constitution of India. And this is something you'll find even in the German Constitution, which we'll come to later. the father of the Indian Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. One of the things that he was the head of the drafting committee, and he brought down the working hours, official working hours from 14 to 8 hours a day. And he studied law in India, in the UK, and in the US. So he brought his global knowledge to the drafting committee and really spearheaded and created a constitution that was adopted in 1950. We spoke about diversity in India. India is a widely diverse country. You can see the chart here where you sort of put in of different religions existing peacefully in India. We have the concept called unity in diversity. So this chart best describes it. This is the federal structure of the Indian Constitution. We have if you see on the right, it's a little easier. The US Constitution, the UK Constitution, and the Indian Constitution in terms of federal structure. So we basically, we decided to bring the best of both worlds together, a blend of flexibility and rigidity. Then you have on the left a union list, a state list, and a concurrent list. The union list is items on which only the union government, the central government, can deliberate on. Then there's a state list that only is the subject matter of the state government. And then you have a concurrent list which both the union and state work harmoniously together. So we sort of plucked and picked the best out of all the world's constitutions and brought it to our constitution, making it a very dynamic document. The Official Languages Act of India. This is something Gautam has already mentioned about such a diverse country, with Hindi being the most widely spoken, English being the administrative language, and the languages of the High Court and Supreme Court of India. Both written and oral submissions are in English. And the 8th schedule, which talks about various languages of India. So it is truly a very diverse, yet a very unified country in all senses of the word. The hierarchy of the court, it is an independent judiciary. Unlike in last year, I believe there was a speaker, there was an audience member who asked about in the Australia Supreme Court, because in Australia, every state has its own Supreme Court. So in India, that is not the case. In India, it still goes by the term of High Court. So you have the Supreme Court at the topmost level, the High Court, the district and session courts, and the municipal court or the small causes court. Also, you have the tribunal systems taking place. The tribunal systems are specialized courts for consumer matters, for debt recovery matters, which basically are expediting a lot of cases. And the High Court and Supreme Court have the right to go up on certain grounds and appeal to them. So it's truly forming and evolving to be a very effective dispute resolution mechanism system. I come to the German Constitution, the Grundgesetz, or the basic law. So compared to the Indian Constitution, the German Constitution has 141 articles, and the original Constitution is presented to the Chancellor and the President of Germany at the time of their oath or swearing-in ceremony. And we mentioned about the Kesavananda Bharati case, which speaks about the basic structure. This is also present in the German Constitution in Article number 1. The German version's on the left, the English version's on the right, and the first line says human dignity shall be inviolable. That means it cannot be infringed. It cannot be taken away. And such things it starts, just like in India, we start with we the people. This starts with human dignity. So this is something that cannot be touched ever. This cannot be ever amended. This is set in stone and perpetual in nature. So why is the German constitution called basic law? There were two reasons for it, because the drafters or the writers of this document do not intend on it becoming a permanent constitution. It was created as a provisional document. The second reason was, at the time, right after World War II, Germany was divided between the West and the East. The Iron Curtain was there, dividing East and the West. And one of the fears was about adopting a permanent constitution at the time was that it would endanger the future goal or the future bringing back together of German reunification. Amendments, again, much less than the amendments that we have in India. And it's also, the reason being, Germany is a much smaller country, geographically, population-wise, and therefore it's being amended much less. But it's still been amended 62 times. And the basic law and the basic level has been done due to two reasons. Actually, I should have put the East and West before the EU integration because there was a lot of difference, but we basically keep it down to two main factors: the EU integration of regulations and directives. Germany is a member state of the European Union, and regulations that are passed by the European Parliament is something that is a blanket order. That means all member states have to follow it to the letter. Directives, on the other hand, are passed by the European Parliament, and these are to be adopted in or tailored to the local circumstances following the guidelines that have been set. And then the East-West reunification actually created a lot of changes. The capital shifted from Bonn to Berlin. So you have many changes happening, and this is why there are 62 changes. Basic law principles are in perpetuity, what we already mentioned about. That's again with the Indian structure, very similar to the Indian, well, I will not even say similar, I would say it's almost the same structure as the Indian system of the case of Kesavananda Bharati, the basic structure. So the Article 1, it has to be always in perpetuity. That can never be touched or amended by Parliament, no matter whatever be the majority. And Article 79, subsection 3, speaks about the eternity clause in the German constitution and bans amendments that can affect Article 1. So this is, one cannot tinker with this or touch this. This is there. The federal administrative structure, we already discussed the Indian administrative structure. This is the federal structure. You'll find the municipalities on the bottom rung. You'll find the districts, the urban districts, the government districts. You find the federal states, 16 federal states, the Bundesländer in total. And then you have the city states, one of them being Hamburg. And at the federal level is the Bundestag, is the parliament functioning from there. This is the court structure, just to give a small idea, on the right-hand side, you'll find the local court, the Amtsgericht, the regional court, the Landgericht, and you would go upwards. And one of the things we would mention is the German Supreme Court or the Constitutional Court does not take up every issue for hearing. It takes up a small number of cases every year, a very selected number of cases that have constitutional ramifications. And only those cases are decided. The other cases are settled out at the district, local courts, or the regional or the higher regional courts. So it follows the pattern which has been mentioned. I'll go into some similarities. The India and Germany structure. You'll find the federal structure mentioned Part 11. In the German Constitution, Article 20. In India and Germany, both have the separation of religion and state. In India, it's inscribed in a preamble, being a secular country. In Germany, it's inscribed into Article 137. India has borrowed the suspension of fundamental rights during an emergency from the Weimar Constitution. In India, it is under Article 359, and it's only been, the emergency laws only been used once in India's history. In the German constitution, Article 11 also provides for an emergency clause, but basically it is a much more restrictive version of being only the freedom of movement and some very small restrictions in terms of public emergency. The Indian Constitution was adopted in 26th of January 1950. The West German, because that time there was the division between the East and West for our Indian audience, the basic law approved in Bonn on 8th of May 1949. So you can see there's just an 8-month difference, but both the countries are sharing democratic values and processes overall. The differences: 448 articles, 141 articles, 104 amendments, 62 amendments. So these are the first things that come to the mind. And one of the most important things, in my opinion, that is this it differentiates India and Germany is the use of common law and civil law. Common law is being used in India. The Supreme Court of India or the High Courts of India are bound by its previous judgment unless the judgment is overturned by the Supreme Court, and only a larger Supreme Court bench of judges can overturn a previous judgment. And this is, we are in India, the courts are used to interpret the law. It's the job of parliament to pass the law. It's the responsibility of the courts to interpret the law. But in Germany, it's a little different. In Germany, there's no concept of precedent. It's the judges are not bound by an order that they are passed or a judgment. Those judgments are only used as sort of a guideline. So this is a very important distinction that is there. Both legal system has its advantages. I would not call any of them disadvantages. Both have their advantages. In Germany, you would find law books to be really, really thick. And for me, it baffled me at first that why would I need such a big law book? But then I realized that all the laws are basically codified. So truly, the laws in India, when we want to look up a law, we would see a lot of judgments to see what exactly has been passed. And then we come to our decision based on that. So this is a little bit of a different scenario. Conclusion of this part is both constitutions born around the same time, and there are lessons to be learned from both. I quickly go through my legal studies and career prospects in Germany. There are many programs you can study, but I would, for someone who has an LLB, LL.M, a Master of Laws, is the most traditional career path. It's usually in India, it's also become, a lot of the colleges have made it from 2 years to 1 year. In Germany, it's also 1 year. The LL.M advantage in Germany after an LLB in India: low cost tuition fees with the possibility of merit-based scholarship, studying European and international law, including WIPO and arbitration. WIPO is World Intellectual Property Organization, the United Nations law, and arbitration as well, international arbitration, a multinational classroom, potential to learn a new language, and law studies often include an economics element. This gives lawyers, especially transactional lawyers, the idea of how to present a solution for someone on the basis, not just on a legal perspective, but on a business angle as well. So it's often that times that we legal consultants are sort of presenting ideas only from a legal aspect, not taking into account from a commercially ramifications, what could it be? Post LLM opportunities in Germany and India. This is something Professor Kotzur has already gone into about the opportunities that one could have, including doing a doctoral program, a PhD program in one's field, or working with a German law firm, working with a German company or a law firm with an India desk focus. Learning the basics of the German language helps. It definitely helps for day-to-day life. Completing valuable internships in Germany and thereafter setting up practice back in India. This is also very valuable. because India is a growing economy. It's the fastest growing major economy in the world. And there are many businesses coming to India to set up shop. And I think this is a very good time to bring an international exposure, especially in the legal profession, which is taking a completely different shape than what it was 25 years back. Therefore, with even the Indo-German EU trade consultancy to bridge build, it's possible, something that Antigona already has done, working in the trade chambers. And this is a way to do trade relations. And if somebody wants to do, this is an international relations in itself, a nation building between two nations. And one can also do an LLM with a particular focus. For example, one can study economics with a law focus. One can study human rights and work as a human rights consultant in the way Joanna is already doing. So doctoral is for those who would like to move into academia, but also it's very common in Germany and in India sometimes for practicing lawyers to have doctoral titles and doctoral degrees. It's a huge advantage because it shows super specialty in one's chosen field. And I think this is almost the end. Oh yeah, this is the end. So thank you very much, everyone, for your attention. And I leave the stage back to you, Gautam.
Thank you very, very much, Richard. And it has been great. I think your talk already directly answers some of the questions that has been already asked in this chat and also before. So I think all the speakers, including you, Professor Kotzur, Lesi, Joanna, all have really answered several questions. Nevertheless, we have several open questions. So now I would like to request all our speakers to unmute so that I will go through as many questions as possible in the next 10 minutes and try to answer as many as possible. So I will take up the question one after the other. So to start with, I would say that I would take a question that is saying that I want to know how does one work with rules on GDPR if one is interested in digital media company for Europe and India, best geopolitical and cultural content. Is it clear enough? How does one work with the rules on GDPR if one is interested in digital media company for Europe and India? So if you are dealing with both the places, how to respect this GDPR topic? Is there any?
Yeah, maybe I can say 2 words to that. The GDPR is a very complex regulatory scheme, and as you might know, we have quite restrictive rules on data protection, on privacy protection, both in Germany and the European Union. So I think if you study European law in Germany, that is very important to really have a class on that data protection. And of course, it will not be all comprehensive. And, from students I had in the past, and also from students who are, specializing in as an elective, for instance, in the field of data protection, I know that it's in particular important that you have practical experience later on as a legal trainee, either in a law firm or in a company. But, there will be classes in Germany on data protection law, on the GDPR. And I think that is a very important starting point to really get into and to understand the very concept of data protection within the European Union. So, for instance, in Hamburg, we also have some specialized colleagues. We even have a small institute on the information society dealing with these data protection questions. And in the past, I supervised quite some master's thesis, in particular dealing with the data protection question and applying a comparative approach, which can be a very helpful learning experience if you compare the constitutional framework of your home country, in your case, India, with the framework of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kotzur, for giving this insight. So now moving forward, I would like to take up the next question, which is by Mr. Paul Mantosh, who is a former member of India's federal parliament. So he's a former member of Lok Sabha. He had a question directly to Professor Kotzur that can you enlighten us to how judges of Germany's federal constitutional courts are appointed?
Oh, that is a very important question. The appointment is an appointment in which the federal parliament and also the Bundesrat play a role. So there is a formal procedure. They are appointed by both chamber, by our parliament, by the Bundestag, and also by the Bundesrat. And the selection process is that, there is a certain number of judges who are university professors, a certain number of judges at the federal court who have before been judges at higher courts in Germany. And there's also a certain number of judges that have been working as lawyers in private practice. So to guarantee that there is a wide horizon of all legal jobs and legal experiences, that they bring these experiences into the work at the Federal Constitutional Court. It's all in all 18 justices in 2 senates. Each senate has 8 justices. And we have a formal guarantee that all big political parties have a say in which judges, from different political directions shall be elected. This is an informal agreement, of course, but since you need the approval of the parliament, so I think it makes sense to really have a very pluralistic field of representation. What we do not have is public hearings, as in the United States of America. There's always been some kind of debates whether that would make sense or not, but so far we do not have public hearings in Germany.
So just in connection to that, so first of all, thank you for this elaborative answer. And there is some connecting question that can such courts, so I mean the Supreme Court, hears appeals from the lower courts?
And the Supreme Court in Germany, so the Federal Constitutional Court will not hear appeals because we have a system not like in India or in the United States where the Supreme Court is also the Constitutional Court. Our Federal Constitutional Court will only deal with issues of constitutional quality, with constitutional questions. But we have Supreme Courts. We have a Supreme Court in criminal law, in private law, in administrative law, and these courts will hear appeal cases, and we have a two-tiered structure of appeal cases. And the highest level is the revision, and that will be heard by the Supreme Court. And if, the judgment of the Supreme Court might lead to a constitutional violation, you could even go to the Federal Constitutional Court, and that is not even the end. So if you say there has been a serious human rights violation, which neither the Supreme Court nor the Federal Constitutional Court got correctly, you can even try to approach the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg.
Thank you so much for such an elaborative answer. So I just would like to kindly request, if possible, to all our speakers to stay at least 10 minutes more so that we can take a few questions. So the idea was to finish in 1.5 hours, but if some of you can stay for 10 more minutes, that would be really kind.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, so the question is that what are the differences in how the German Federal Constitutional Court and the Indian Supreme Court interpret constitutional law? I think you have covered this in a certain way, Richard, right?
Yes. This is something that I've covered.
So let's move to the next question then. They are saying, I have a question around navigating the bureaucracy and finding the right holding a structure for a startup. I live in Germany and I want to help digitize German healthcare efforts as it's impacting everyone already. However, I'm a bit stuck with the bureaucracy and there is not enough clarity. Is there any lawyer that can help us, please?
Maybe I can take that question. I already answered it in the chat as well.
Yeah.
So there is a well, there is a clear structure actually on which format you can choose. There is, well, if you want to establish a business, you can, in the end, choose which ones you want to get. If you want to have a full coverage, in Germany, it's called a GmbH, or if you want to have your own one-person setup first. So there's a couple of business the parts that you can take up. There's a very good link on the Chamber of Commerce's, and they do provide knowledge on that, and they actually also provide consultancy on that. So that is one of the questions you can always go to the chambers for, and they will navigate your request and tell you which setup is the best for you, or which one is, yeah, for you to set up.
Thank you very, very much, Antigona. I think, yes, you have also sent the links and so on. I think very direct help, I would say. It's great. And I think the next question also partly goes in this direction. Someone is asking, I would like to know how people having companies registered in India can provide goods and services to Europe. Service also like digital consultancy. I think this should also go through the Chamber of Commerce, or is there?
Yeah, so I also answered that in the chat. It's a bit of a longer process, so you will have to have some sort of representation within Europe to do so. There's also different ways of doing that. Again, there's a very good startup guide on the website of the Berlin Chamber of Commerce. I also put the link in the chat where you can have a step-by-step starting your business guide on that. And if there's any further questions, the chambers also have startup classes for that. You can also sign up for free for these classes or call them directly. That's also possible.
Thanks a lot. So now there's a question about the career prospect. So Richard, please let me know whether this is fully covered or you want to add.
Yeah.
The question is that what are the opportunities of first generation lawyers in Germany from India? So I believe that someone has done their studies in India and they want to see what are the opportunities.
Yes. So this is something I covered, but I can just go into very little detail. I think the important thing is to get a local qualification from a German university, would be in the form of an LL.M or a Master of Business and Law, but most traditional is the LL.M path. Many students also take up the MA part in European studies, but LL.M is the more traditional path. And it truly, the concept of court practice is not prevalent as much as it is in India. A lot of law students want to practice in a court, but in Germany, it's a question of which law firm do you want to work with. And this is a little of a different little shift in different career prospects, because law firms are basically hiring people only when it comes, because as a non-qualified German lawyer, it is important to be a qualified German lawyer to work as in a law firm. But normally the India or the Asia desk is this is where sort of cross-qualified lawyers can find a role in. So I would say working in a law firm, foreign department, and the India desk would be a good way forward to move.
I just want to add here from my own experiences that I have also found that the German lawyers are working in human resource department in big companies.
Correct.
So this is a very interesting topic because they have to deal with many contractual topic of the people and so on. So I don't know whether such thing is so common practice in India, I doubt, but just to add on here.
Correct. Rightfully said, because employment law and labor law is something like Antigona mentioned, to check one's contract. It's a very specialized topic, and there are many opportunities but this is also has to do with the fact if you're a local qualified German lawyer, not just completing an LL.M.
Yeah.
So absolutely right, Gautam.
Thanks a lot. So we will try to cover as many as possible with a short answer probably. One is asking, how can one establish an Indo-Euro network where a student and professional can do cross-cultural training in the domain of business, culture, and technology? So I think our effort is going really in this direction to bring people together and find their partners. So I think this is what I would say, that this is one of such platform. There are several. Richard is also connected with GenSip. They are also doing the similar kind of thing, but mainly focus on the startup business and so on. So there are several possibilities existing. So I will be happy if you can write this message. I have given also the email addresses, how you want to contribute and how we can take up forward. So there's a question related to if a cured, former rehabilitated
No, I think
𝗕𝗃𝗻𝗊.
it has to be mentioned. I think this is specifically to Joanna from Anita Brooks. So, yeah.
Yeah, Joanna, can you take up this question? It is about a homeless person with mental illness get some information about their family living in Europe. How do we go ahead with connecting them?
So I'll begin with there is no SOP in place currently in India to do this. However, there are organizations that actively work on this. Two of the organizations that I know of are 𝗷𝗿𝗵𝗀𝗃 and National Institution for Social Defense. What they do is that they connect the families with the embassies. Again, it's not conceptualized, but this is usually the procedure that is followed. They reach out to the embassies, whichever European country this particular person's family is staying, they verify through the embassies that are involved. And they get back with the information, and then they try to scope out whether reunification is possible. It's a bit challenging since it's not procedurally set up. This is not a law in India. However, it has been done on a couple of instances, particularly between families between Indian, not European countries, but India and Pakistan. It has happened before, India and Bangladesh as well. But that is usually the procedures through organizations like 𝗷𝗵𝗵𝗃 and the NIST, reaching out to different organizations, even internationally. The Red Cross International is another organization working in Germany and other European countries that actively works on reunification of families that have been separated. So, yes.
Thank you very much, Joanna. So I don't know whether I will be able to take all the questions, but I will try very fast then few of them at least. The question is
Rapid
what?
round.
Sorry?
No, it's just saying rapid round.
Yeah. What legal topics and regulations should be considered when establishing an export business for human medicine from India to Germany?
Well, that is a very detailed question, I'm afraid. I think that's, yeah, again, a question that can be asked to the chambers, and they can give you more detailed answers. But this is not really easy and answered in 1 or 2 sentences, to be honest.
Thank you very much. So this was also some question which was already asked while registering. So there is a question like, what are the career spectrum for let's say, what is the career path of lawyers and advocates working for foreign companies in India? Is there any take on this, Richard?
Yes. So this is one of the things I spoke about was on the career prospects after an LLM. And to be honest, one doesn't need an LLM for that if one's truly, but an LLM certainly would help, but it's not the only prerequisite. Although highly advisable. So working in a foreign company in India, there are many foreign companies who are setting up private limited structures in India. You have a lot of German companies based out of Pune, and Pune is often called the Mittelstand of India because there's so many German companies working in Maharashtra, in all over India, in Kolkata, in all over the place. So this is definitely a very interesting thing to work as an in-house counsel. I would always say that to truly, one never ever starts off as the general counsel of a company. One has to start off as an internship. With an internship, one learns things. Even an unpaid internship for a month would give a lot more experience and exposure. So this is a fantastic thought because the economy is growing and there's a lot of opportunities in this way.
Thanks a lot, Richard. So there is also a question between how can trade relation between India and Germany be established. I think Antigona has already answered in this direction. Let's connect the Chamber of Commerce. And there is a question, maybe this would be the last question, probably seeing the time. Is it possible to register a self-employment institution in India and work in it from Germany? So someone is sitting in Germany and want to establish a self-employment institution in India. Is it possible to work for him?
but that the question becomes a double double taxation can occur.
Okay.
So this is quite a technical topic, and I think that the person could connect on email, and maybe we're not providing legal advice on this platform. We are sort of providing sort of guidance and mentorship, so we can definitely connect and put this forward to an appropriate person. But this is a tax law topic. I think this will come into place.
So with this, I would say thank you very much. I think we have been already 10 minutes over time. So thank you for all the speakers to be patient and joining us here and answering all the detailed questions. For sure, there are many more questions that we could not answer. Nevertheless, please connect us and we will try, if possible, to answer. At least this was an approach to, let's say, keep people aware about it. I think many people learned today what is possible, what are the career opportunities, and what are the opportunities also for business and so on. So with this, I say that this event has been beneficial to each one of you, especially for me, for sure. And for those who will be watching later, I hope you find it equally enlightening. Once again, a very big thank you to our distinguished speakers, performers, and all participants for gracing us for today's event. FOID also extends its sincere gratitude to our esteemed partner. Stay connected with us through our social media channels for updates on upcoming event. Your active participation and support play a vital role in the betterment of our society. Feel free to reach out us via email or social media handles for further engagement. And I have already shared the details of FOID. If you want to connect, feel free to use this social media handle or email. And with that, I will say thank you, bye-bye, and choose. Namaste.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.